You're looking at the waiver wire and you're seeing a bunch of running backs. A bunch of running backs who are starting to do some things on the football field. It's very ambiguous. You do not know which running back's going to pop off next week, but you're seeing them do some things and they're trending up. One running back that's trending up right now is Tank Bigsby. He's looking good. He's been looking good over the last 2 weeks, and now we got to do a deep dive on him to see whether or not you need him for your fantasy football team. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're doing these deep dives every day on as many players as possible. All the trending players off the waiver wire, any trending player in the National Football League that could happen to you in fantasy football, we're doing a deep dive on them. We're using these videos to help you set your lineups and everything else. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching you. You don't want to disappoint him, but Tank Bigsby's been looking good. And the media pressed Doug Peterson on which running back's going to be the guy going forward. We got to hear his response right now so we can get a good and fair shake of what's going through his head, or at least try to interpret that.
Coach, obviously Tank got his due today, and you used him well down the road. Is that something the team's going to be moving forward to instead of moving to Travis Etienne?
No, not at all. Travis is our guy, and Tank had a good game. That's just the way games go, and happy for Tank. Had great for the offensive line, obviously in some of those situations there, but no, Travis is our guy, and Tank had a good game today, though.
It's important to know he's not going to relay information off the bat to the media. He's not going to give you roster changes or depth chart changes off the bat to the media. He's going to play his cards close to his chest, and that, what he just said, it means something, but it also means nothing. It's telling you that he's not going to tell you everything. And what a lot of these coaches do, it's in game. Who's got the high hand, how they want to roll the game script, how the game script is flowing. And we'll look at that in the numbers, and you'll kind of see how they like to use these running backs, or how they will like to use these running backs going forward. But Peterson right now isn't going to give you the news on whether or not he will be the starting running back, the running back that's going to get the touches every week. Right now, he's looking at both these backs. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do. He probably doesn't even know really right now even, but he's very happy what he's getting with Tank Bigsby, because how could you not be? But you're looking at the yardage here, 90 in week 4, 101 in week 5. That's looking good. Fantasy production's been spotty, 25 points in week 5. Nothing really the other weeks, even though 73 yards in week 1, 90 yards in week 4. He's only got 1 target on season. He's not used in the passing game. That makes him very, very dangerous in your fantasy football lineups, because we need to cross the goal line for him to be productive in fantasy, because the rushing yardage isn't enough to get it done. Going back in college, he was an early producer. He was getting it done. And his final year in 2022, 4.16 yards after contact per attempt. Sounds like something we saw last week, where he was getting yards after contact, just bulldozing through DBs and linebackers. And then we get to the combine, 4.5 speed. We're not a blazer, but we got good size. We got decent speed. We got decent burst out of this prospect. Nothing over the moon. Drafted in the 3rd round. Drafted really to be the grinder up the gut. That's what his profile says. And last year, a lot of people left him for dead because he was not productive in fantasy football. A lot of people weren't drafting him. A lot of people were drafting him with their last pick. But he's a player in an offense that is one of the fastest paced teams in the league last year, that probably should have been put on notice a little bit more due to the sheer volume of plays ran in the offense. We finally popped off in week 5. But looking at the trend lines from last year and early part of this year, it is very sus so far right now. But his last 2 weeks, rushing yards wise, is a good trend. And you're looking at Travis Etienne, even though a lot of people are not happy with him right now, still getting you RB2 production, still in double-digit fantasy points per week almost. 15.56 in the last 2 years, 2023 and 2024. He had 1 game where he scored just 7 fantasy points, but outside of that, he's getting you 12 or more in every game. But you're looking at the work rate here, and Tank Bigsby is crushing Travis Etienne in rushing yardage on way less carries and less games because he had that shoulder injury. Remember that one? But he's more efficient on the ground. You can't bring him down. You can't arm tackle him. You need to come right up on Tank Bigsby and make that tackle, or he's going to get by you. He's also got enough speed to house it. We saw that last week, and we saw him break a lot of tackles. There was a run for 10 yards that went to the end zone. He fumbled it in the end zone where he got through an arm tackle, then he spun out of a tackle, then he met a guy head on, got through that, dragged it, got it all the way down to the end of the play. This guy is a monster in the open field if you're trying to tackle him. Tough in space, and he is a tank. And in weeks 4 and 5, we're looking at the rushing attempts here. Tank Bigsby's leading it, and he's crushing it. And most of his yards are from weeks 4 and 5. And he's got 2 touchdowns, and he's looking good. But that being said, Travis Etienne, 9 targets in the last 2 weeks, running 29 routes in the last 2 weeks with a 42% route participation rate. 8 routes ran in the last 2 games for Tank Bigsby, averaging 4 routes per game during that time. That is the big problem with Tank Bigsby. We're not getting used enough in the passing game. So he's not going to give you a floor. He's either going to give you boom weeks or no weeks for fantasy production. And if you can't handle that, then you may not want him, and you may not want to spend a lot of fab on him, or you may not want to start him. But he's either going to give you a lot or nothing. And that might trend to more if they start using him more around the goal line. Maybe we're getting more games where he gets 70, 80, 90, 100 yards, and that's more consistent. But on top of that, those games where he doesn't cross the goal line and he still has a good yardage total, he's not racking up catches. He's not racking up yards in the passing game. That's going to impact his floor. That's going to impact his opportunity. That being said, Travis Etienne is good in the passing game. We saw that in college. 48 receptions in 2020, 37 receptions in 2019. Again, we're looking at the full thing. We all know this from his days here at Jacksonville. I don't think the matchups matter much with this because honestly, when you're looking at this going forward, it's who's getting the touches in that moment, how the game script is going in that moment, and if you can break one loose. In week 4, there was a run where it was pretty much a gimme up the gut. It was a hole, and he took advantage of it. The thing is, Tank Bigsby's good at taking advantage of his opportunities. When there's a hole, he finds it and gets through it, even if it's an easy one. Think of Trent Richardson. He wasn't able to do that. Tank Bigsby's able to find those creases, even when they're gimmies, get through them, and get you yards after contact. Those yards after contact is huge for his production profile. And we're looking at this matchup against the Bears. The Bears are 19.2% ahead of league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points per game to running backs. Chuba Hubbard, Kyron Williams, Jonathan Taylor all blew up against them. Both these running backs have potential to give you double-digit PPR fantasy points this week. There's potential for that. Teams are also throwing it more to the running back against them. So we might see Travis Etienne see some targets in this matchup as well. You don't need him. You don't like him because he's sharing touches. He's not catching balls out of the backfield. And that is a big thing for running backs. And a lot of people don't chase running backs like that. He is hot right now. He's been hot over the last 2 weeks. That's something to look at. I look at him as a cuff plus still. A guy that you have on your bench, you play the matchups with. However, when you put him in your lineup, it's a gamble. It's a gamble because he's got to cross that goal line. And that's not always his fault whether he does or not, because Trevor Lawrence, the offense, they got to keep the chains moving. Ball's got to keep flowing. He's got to be on the field for that goal line moment. It could be Travis Etienne, but still he's getting enough work for him to be a cuff plus because he can score on any given Sunday. I also think he has long-term upside to expedite his production because he's already proven to put out long gains, earn some workload. Something happens to Travis Etienne, which has happened before. He's going to get a lot of workload, probably get used more in the passing game. We're seeing him get used in drills in the passing game over in training camp and mini camp. You need to follow the channel because we go over those clips all off season long on these players. So we know he can catch the ball in the backfield. But Travis Etienne in space is more electric. However, Tank Bigsby is tanking it up the gut. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.